Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is a gut-wrenching 2002 thriller by acclaimed South Korean filmmaker Park Chan-Wook and is the first installment in Chan-Wook's Vengeance trilogy. With the richness of its themes and the subtly terrifying implications it develops, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance represents one of the best examples of classical tragedy in recent years.
You must recover all the energy immediately, Mega Man.
Ryu, Shin Hyakun, a deaf-mute factory worker, must raise a fortune in a very short time to pay for his sick sister's kidney transplant. His anarchist girlfriend Young-mi, Baiduna, persuades him to abduct a manufacturing tycoon's daughter and hold her for ransom, but this plan soon unravels in morbidly tragic ways. Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is a slow but entrancing film with great performances and an engrossing pitch-black comedic tone. Ha-kyun does a remarkable job of conveying powerful, poignant emotion without speaking a single word. As a protagonist, Ryu has a kind, naive nobility, but he is clearly quite clever and perceptive, and viciously retaliates against anyone who has wronged him. Every major character is well defined and infused with moral nuance, and I was honestly surprised at how funny Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance could be. It's sweet watching Yoo-sun, Han Bo-bae, the tycoon's daughter, laughing, playing, and watching TV in Ryu's apartment, completely oblivious to having been kidnapped. Young-mi absurdly tries to justify Yoo-sun's kidnapping using her anarchist rhetoric, asserting that the abduction and ransoming of the girl would increase the value of the capital/girl, and the way Ryu mildly points out a minor hole in her plan about school times made me laugh out loud. A casual report from a police investigator, in which Young-mi is revealed to be the only member of the revolutionary anarchist army she proudly proclaimed her allegiance to, is an amusing way to cap off all of her idealistic bluster. On a darker level, when Ryu's sister discovers the kidnapping and commits suicide, and when Yoo-sun drowns while trying to cross a stream, Ryu's entire motivation, and practically everyone he cared about, is eliminated. These profoundly sad moments mark a turning point in Ryu's character arc, from tender sibling devotion to vengeance and simple survival. These events also precede a marked switching of protagonist, as from here onward the film focuses more on Park Dong-jin, Song Kang-ho, Yoo-sun's grieving father. These tragic scenes are sad but also grimly funny, as it's somehow amusing to see Ryu and Young-mi's plans go so horribly, repeatedly, almost ridiculously wrong. Or maybe I'm just a terrible person. The cinematography and editing are excellent, subtly communicating the character's anxious confusion, especially in a deliberately disorienting sequence of Young-mi leading Dong-jin by phone through the subway, and their smallness in such a cruel, uncaring world. Indeed, the visual design and location shots conjure the impression of a world slightly removed from our own, with walkways overrun with jungle-like weeds, a crime ring's office in an abandoned open-air car park, and tree roots resembling giant fossilized bones. This surreality in the visuals casts the film's strong emotions and authentic violence in sharp, more plausible relief. Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance has slow, languid pacing, but this works to its immense advantage. Oldboy, the second film in Chan-Wook's trilogy, is a great film, but I think I prefer the punchy simplicity of Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. Chan-Wook is utterly committed to showing a simple plan break down and presenting the raw, sorrowful reactions and grisly consequences of this breakdown. As such, with these engaging characters and harsh emotional intimacy, the slow pace makes the film feel like a life unfolding rather than a dramatic series of events. Some of the best films I've ever seen, such as The Hunt, The Seventh Seal, The Great Beauty, and 1 Hour Photo, gave me this feeling. The work of Dante gives me this feeling as well. About mid-last year, I read Dante's Inferno for the first time, and I really enjoyed it. This epic poem about the author-insert protagonist's arduous tour of hell has deeply evocative descriptions, macabre and imaginative set pieces, tormented denizens and sly demons all brimming with personality, and surprisingly modern moral sensibilities for a book published in AD 1320. The part that stuck with me the most was in Canto 3, in one of the outermost regions of hell, where Dante and his guide Virgil observe a seemingly endless procession of miserable souls on their way to deeper parts of hell. I gleaned an impression of timelessness from this infernal queue, which, like the rest of hell, apparently contains damned souls from all throughout human history. I wondered how far back in time this queue stretched. Let's imagine that Inferno and 2001: A Space Odyssey take place in the same universe, and why not? In the film, the monolith triggers the first intelligent thought in our Australopithecine ancestors, and with it technology and violence. Did it also spark sin in our distant ancestors? Are there ape-men shambling among the damned humans in Hell's Foyer? And does this queue contain the condemned of the future, too? Does it harbor the damned who have not yet died, or not even been born yet? Am I in this queue? I'm an atheist, but this passage was so existentially troubling that I had to put the book down for a while to process it. Similarly, the ending of Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance featured some profoundly unsettling implications that few have considered. In the film's climax, Dong-jin murders and dismembers Ryu for the death of Yusun, but is then killed by Young-mi's anarchist friends, in a sort of double twist on earlier information, as revenge for Dong-jin murdering Young-mi. After the deaths of Yusun and Ryu's sister, every major character dies in a grim chain of personal retribution, but will it stop there? All human beings are related, and setting aside genetics, any person can be socially linked to any other through a possibly very long but still finite number of steps. Think of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon exercise, but encompassing the Earth's entire population. I'm good friends with Tom Denham, former creative director of Doctor Who fan audio drama group Illusionist Productions. Denham met and briefly worked with Simon Becker Fisher, who played the blue alien merchant Dorian Maldovar in official Doctor Who. Becker Fisher, in turn, acted alongside Matt Smith, who starred as the 11th Doctor in said program. This means that I, a nobody from Australia, have only 3 degrees of separation from the Doctor. Any person can eventually be linked to any other, and people are connected through emotional investment. As such, in a world defined by vengeance, and where life is both cherished and frivolous, you know that Dong-jin's death won't be the end of the story. Dong-jin will be avenged by someone close to him, who will kill Dong-jin's killers. But then Dong-jin's killers will be avenged by people close to them, who will kill the people who murdered Dong-jin's killers. But then the people who murdered Dong-jin's killers will be avenged by people close to them, who will kill the people who killed the people who murdered Dong-jin's killers, and on in a barbaric, all-consuming cycle. Just as the long procession in Dante's Inferno may represent the totality of human evildoers, past and future, the initial deaths of Yusun and Ryu's sister, and the bloody reprisals they caused, may have set in motion the end of the world in Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. This feels like a logical extension of Chan-Wook's film, as humanity murders and avenges itself into extinction. Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance may be one of the purest examples of classic Aristotelian tragedy in all of cinema, a film replete with acts eliciting fear and pity, punctuated by gruesome scenes of catharsis, only the catharsis may never end.